are NIO's Q4 2022 earnings going to look like, and also what are some of the other factors that we need to consider for this earnings report. We're going to unpack all of those in this one video. It is going to be a jam-packed video, so make sure I have your full attention. So guys, using NIO's delivery numbers for each vehicle that they delivered in Q4, and also the lowest possible price that you can buy the vehicle for, we can come up with a lowest estimate, or a lowest threshold, an estimated lowest threshold for the revenue that NIO generated for Q4 of 2022. So that's exactly what I did. So if you guys haven't already downloaded this cheat sheet, this is like a spreadsheet of all the different prices of all the different EVs here in China. And then I have also this chart which showcases all the prices compared to each other, so you can see who's competing with who and then who's taking whose market share. So definitely download that. And also I'll be including the earnings section of whatever I'm going to talk about in the updated version of this report as well. So go download that. It's only going to be available for a week or so, and then I'm going to remove it. All I ask in return, sign up with our sponsor eToro, get some special sign up bonuses, and also sign up with Mumu, get some special sign up bonuses as well. So let's get started. From the previous month's deliveries, we can add up the ET7 deliveries for October, November, December, and also the NT 1.0 deliveries. So these would also be so all the NT 1.0 vehicles, the EC6, the ES8, the ES6, these are the NT 1.0 versions of those cars. We can add them up October, November, December. The ET5 deliveries, also the same story, October, November, December, add them up. And then of course finally we also have the ES7 deliveries, October, November, December. And of course during Q4 we saw these vehicles being ramped up, and a lot of deliveries of these vehicles happen in Q4. So that's obviously very nice. So what does it look like once we add all of them up? So here we have the deliveries. We can see what they look like. So 11,865 for ES7 NT 1.0s for Q4, 8,959 for ET7, 7,636, ET5, 11,592. So that's for the Q4 deliveries. So total deliveries 40,052 total deliveries in Q4 2022. And also with the lowest price, so these are obviously the non-BAS prices. Even with BAS, the money gets paid up to NIO upfront, so NIO still receives the full amount with the battery cost being paid by Weineng, and so NIO gets the full price of the car with the battery every time a customer buys a car. So here is the lowest price for each of these vehicles, and then by doing a simple multiplication we can get the total lowest possible revenue, estimated revenue for each vehicle model. So this is what it looks like, and then up here down in the bottom, this is the total in RMB for all the vehicle revenue. So this is only revenue from vehicles. I want you guys to make that clear. So if you convert that into USD, you can see what that looks like. So that means for total minimum revenue, right, we're looking at 2.36 billion US dollars for total minimum revenue for vehicles. And how does that compare to Q4 of 2021? That is a 51.8% year-over-year growth, just using the minimum value. Of course, this minimum value is ain't gonna be the actual revenue number, because the actual revenue number will be much higher than this, because this doesn't count into all the different options that you might be choosing for the vehicle. So if you choose like bigger wheels or different paint colors, or if you choose Nomi, that's an add-on, that's extra money, that's not included in this calculation. And also this also assumes the NT 1.0 SUV price. I've used the lowest price of the ES6. So there's obviously EC6 deliveries, there's obviously ES8 deliveries. Those are much more expensive vehicles. So this is just the lowest possible threshold. So even with the lowest possible threshold compared to 2021, that's already a 51.8% year-over-year increase. So imagine you add on some of the other stuff. So for example, NIO Life sells a ton of stuff. There is definitely some revenue from that. Battery upgrades. There are people that upgrade the battery. For example, I have the 70 kilowatt hour battery. If I choose to pay and get the 100 kilowatt hour battery, that's extra revenue to NIO. Another very important aspect of extra revenue is from NIO's charging business. Now, I want to talk a little bit more in depth about NIO's charging business because you guys all know that Tesla's chargers are exclusive to Tesla's, but NIO's chargers are not exclusive to NIO's. NIO's got battery swap that are exclusive to NIO's. Chargers, NIO superchargers, are actually available to all sorts of different brands, and everybody can use them. Now, that has both positive implications and negative implications. I'll talk about the negative ones first. The negative ones are some NIO owners are very upset that they go to a NIO supercharger and then all of a sudden it's full, like there are no available chargers and it's all occupied by other brands. And then that's a very, very bad feeling for NIO owners when that kind of situation happens. And it does happen, and I've encountered that several times when I'm charging, someone else comes in and there's a Li Auto next to me charging, and that NIO owner that came was super pissed off. He was like, why the hell is that guy charging over here? Do you see Tesla superchargers being available for other guys? But you gotta understand the positive side of this is, of course, extra revenue. And one way NIO has really work to balance this out is to offer different prices to these different group categories. So NIO's own customers, they get a discounted price, and you can actually see in the NIO app, lots of NIO superchargers have these little gift box kind of look, a red gift box, and that's just discounted. Normally it means it's either cheaper, like no service cost, or it's just a percentage based discount. And then what NIO has also done is NIO has now, I don't want to get your hopes too high for this, but I know this has just happened recently. So NIO has also jacked up the prices for third-party other people. So if you're not a NIO owner and you go to a supercharger, a NIO supercharger, and this happened during the Chinese New Year holiday, they've jacked up the prices up to maybe like $5, 5 RMB per kilowatt hour, when normally it's supposed to be like 1 RMB per kilowatt hour for regular chargers. So during times of high demand, especially during Chinese New Year, that's when you see NIO sometimes jack it up for non-NIO owners, so they earn more revenue and at the same time give a bit more exclusivity to NIO owners. So this is actually going to be a big revenue driver going into the future. Of course, charging isn't going to get you as much money as selling cars, so that's something to keep in mind. But in my personal estimate, if we calculate all the different options, for example, you're definitely going to get the driver's package. For example, heated steering wheel, heated seats, you definitely need that stuff. So with the driver's package, that's another 9,000 RMB, which is roughly about 1,500 for each vehicle. So that's also a lot of money. So at the end of the day, what you could be looking at is around, well, in my estimate, of course, this is not financial advice. Don't ever do anything based on what I say. We could be looking at maybe 60% upwards to 70% year-over-year revenue growth. Now, this is the revenue side of things. Expenses is something that's kind of worrying for me personally, because NIO is, in my opinion, getting their hands on a lot of different stuff, which they, in my opinion, shouldn't be doing. Here are some of the things that they've been working on. So on top of coming up with new NT 2.0 products, they're also working on NT 3.0, which is the next generation of NIO vehicles. And of course, if you see my recent video, the ET9 is going to be announced later this year. NIO Day in December, delivered in late 2024 or early 2025. And NT 3.0 is probably the vehicle that's also going to be entered and available in the US. So that's what I've heard, that NT 1.0, China only, 2.0 China and Europe, 3.0 China, Europe, USA. So there's a big amount of R&D that goes into that, working on NT 3.0. And then on top of that, right, there's also expansion. NIO has expanded quite rapidly across Europe, all these different countries, and lots of good reviews over there as well. But we're seeing lower sales, not exactly super high sales over there. Partly is because there's a tax effect, which I gotta explain. That is, when you buy a BMW here in China, BMWs are subject to 20% import tax. So in China, BMWs are 20% more expensive than NIOs, right? Because of the whole tax thing. But of course, dealers, they do discounts and all sorts of stuff. But there is that tax. In Europe, in Germany, there's a 90% value-added tax. So NIOs are more expensive than BMWs that are produced locally there. So there is that difference, that skew. So if a Chinese person over here who's looking at like NIO and BMW, if they go to Germany, the price differences is massively flipped. BMWs are massively cheaper than NIOs. So that's something you got to keep in mind. So expansion, Europe, also UK, all these different places, infrastructure to building new houses, service centers. They're building up their team. Of course, it's all very good. Expansion is nice, but is NIO expanding too fast? That's a question I want to ask. In my opinion, yes, they are expanding a little bit too fast. It's very important to not lose track of what the primary market is. The primary market is still China, right? It is still China until USA comes along, because if you look at the population of Europe, right, Germany is the population of Germany is comparable to the population of one single province in China. Straight off the bat with population difference, you're not gonna get massive numbers in Europe. So it's important not to lose focus on China. So on top of those expansion costs, there's also other costs that I think are just kind of iffy. Of course, in my own opinion, I think it's absolutely not unnecessary costs. For example, they're developing smartphones, they're developing smartwatches, they're developing headphones. Here's why I think smartphones are kind of dumb. William Li has expressed the fact that a lot of their customers use Apple iPhones, and then you can't have another company have the keys to your car. That's his exact words. So that's a little bit concerning, because I think for most people, even if there is a NIO phone, people will still use an iPhone because, the iOS system and everything. They're not going to ditch their phones because the car company comes up with a new phone. And also, if you think about it, when is this phone going to be released? This phone is going to be released in Q3, Q4 of this year with Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. And in the later parts of this year, that's when the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 comes out. So what I'm worried about is when the phone comes out, it's going to be already outdated in terms of chips compared to all the other guys. So in my opinion, it's just totally not worth it to spend so much money R&D developing a phone, and then sell it to the few customers and few people that will actually buy the phone. But they're working on that as well, so that's also R&D expenses that they're pouring in. And then the most insane expenses that I just think is crazy, that might actually destroy the company, is of course the sub brands. Now let me put it this way: how expensive is it to start a car company? It's extremely expensive, extremely difficult to start a car company. Lots of money, lots of R&D. You got factories, you got service centers, you got stores, you got to train personnel, you got to have a whole infrastructure set up. Now multiply that by 2. That is what you need to wrap your head around. Starting 2 brand new car companies, 2 sub brands at the same time, is just going to be a massive drain on NIO's cash pile, and that's going to burn a lot of money. And you're not going to see that have any positive effect until early 2024 when the vehicles start being sold. All these factors combined means we might see big, massive losses, which I hope we don't see, but I've explained my reasoning behind all this, why we might see those big, massive losses. But at the same time, you got to think about it this way. Growth company, what you want to be seeing is growing revenue, growing losses is okay, right? Because you're a growth company. You got more revenue, more losses, that's okay. As long as you keep the growth of revenue up, that's acceptable. What you don't want to see is decreasing revenue and the growth in losses. So I think investors are going to be overall very positive with this upcoming earnings report. A nice 70% year-over-year growth is very, very impressive, and people are going to absolutely love to see that figure, as long as it's not overshadowed by any sort of massive losses or any surprise losses. That's going to be it for this video. Stay safe, stay healthy. Peace out.